Hi, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the stream. Today, cleaning up Romania's corruption. We'll look at the people's protest against abuses of power. In Romania, this is a big online story, so we want to tap into that online story via our digital producer, Malika Balau. What did you find?
Well, this protest, like so many of them do, took off with the help of social media. Now, on Instagram, many people were sharing videos like these, thousands rallying in the wake of a deadly nightclub fire. Now, they used the hashtag Collective, that's the name of the club, and corruption kills. We'll tell you how these two hashtags are related in today's show. And you can join that conversation with hashtag AJStream.
Now, Bucharest nightclub fire that killed at least 48 people and injured over 100 more has sparked outrage throughout Romania. That anger has even forced the resignation of the country's prime minister. On October the 30th, hundreds were at the Collective nightclub for a heavy metal concert, and that's where an on-stage pyrotechnic display set off a sweeping fire and stampede to escape. It turned into one of the country's deadliest accidents in years. Club owners admitted to cutting corners and violating safety codes. The incident is just one slice of Romania's long-standing problem with corruption. Demonstrators are calling for a political overhaul. Today, we want to understand how corruption impacts the lives of Romanians and what's being done about it. With us to discuss this in Bucharest, Romania, Catalin Drula, an activist who recently met with the president to discuss anti-corruption plans. Radu Magdin is a political analyst and former advisor to the ex-prime minister Victor Ponta. Laurentiu Colintineanu is a journalist in Romania. And in New York, we have Stefan, an anti-corruption activist and former Romanian Ministry of Justice official. Good to have you here, everybody. Radu, this fire, tragic fire. In any country, people will be asking questions. But in Romania, this caused uproar. Why?
Indeed, because first of all, it's highly emotional, and it's justified to be like this. First of all, because I think it's a human instinct. A lot of people died, a lot of people were wounded. So it's we saw the highest mobilization since the Romanian Revolution, 1989, in terms of, I would say, social activism, but also in terms of people coming out to help, whether on social media, but also concrete stuff like donating blood. So I think this when it comes down to victims, when it comes down to people suffering, I think this is the actual tipping point of the last 26 years in terms of people's patience with the political class. I don't think it's something just related to a particular government, because if we look at the way the protests continued, the actual requests are related to the whole political class. Yeah. But nonetheless, I do think this is a tipping point that all of us have legitimately been waiting for. Sure. In terms of changing the society for the better.
Sure. Laurentiu, what did you want to add? I can see you leaning forward there, wanting to jump in. Go ahead.
I like the fact, actually love the fact that Radu was mentioning the tipping point, and I think he's absolutely right. This protest and mass movement against the government, or against the political elite that led to the Romanian government being toppled, comes on the backdrop of like 26 years of mass and endemic corruption in this country. Now, there's two sorts of corruptions and two sorts of attitudes towards corruption. There's people like going to the, I don't know, local mayor's office and getting a permit and just kind of oiling the system in order to get things done. And it's also a fatalist attitude that without a bribe you can't get through, which in some cases is true. But in this case, in the case of the tragic and deadly nightclub fire in the Collective Club, we have seen and we have gotten real proof of the tremendous effects that corruption has. And it has gotten to the point where you showed a hashtag at the beginning of the show, which says "Corupția ucide." In English, that's translated "corruption kills." And it really did kill. 10 seconds before we went on air, news broke that we have the 51st victim that died after the tragic night fire in the Collective Club. It's also a good friend of mine. We were 12 years buddies in school. He was the bass player of the band.
Oh my goodness.
And he And he just died in France after being transported today to a burn unit in France. So I think it has gotten to the tipping point that Radu was mentioning, where people just said, listen, corruption is getting to cost us lives, and this cannot go on. Okay, this cannot go on like this anymore. Although, and Laura, I'm sure, is going to mention, and I totally agree with her, that we have, at least on a high level, loads and loads of inquiries, indictments, trials, high-level officials who are serving terms in jail. Okay, but corruption has
it's not enough.
Sure.
It's really not enough. It just has to come from the level of the Prime Minister down to all the subsequent institutions and people who are in a position to wield corruption.
So guess, just take a pause for a moment, because we had so much outpouring of our online community about this particular fire before we go on and look at the broader picture, which I know is where you're going to take us. But first, let me just dip into some of that. Malika.
Well, talking about this really being the straw that broke the camel's back, this is a Facebook comment we got from Diana, who says, along with the horrible tragedy that killed dozens, we also lost something else in the fire, and that was our sense of security. It's about living or getting killed, not by a fire, but by a system that doesn't do its job. So Laura, to elaborate on that, we got this tweet from Umbra, who says, everybody knows how easy it is to get a license for a club if you bribe the local authorities. So explain to us what that process, if you can call it a process, is, and how that then led to the fire.
I mean, this is exactly the problem. We anti-corruption activists say often that corruption kills, but when you see it actually killing people, it gives you shivers. The problem is that we cannot trust the state to enforce the safety regulations and the regulations at large, the regulations that we have on the books. And to me, a regulation that is never followed, you can equal that to a non-existent regulation. I mean, just after the fire, in the following days, we found out that only 7% of the country's schools have a fire permit, so they are authorized by the fire brigade to operate. We don't know anything about the big concert halls, the stadiums, the public places. So we're actually asking consumers, citizens, people that go out, to become the state and to become detectives, to decide whether a place is safe for them to be in, which is insane. You can't expect people going around and deciding for themselves every single moment if a particular premise is fit to be used. That we transfer to the state, and we need the state to be doing that. And I think this is a broader problem we have in Romania, and that spills into many other sectors, be it the infrastructure building or the energy-related issues, with the exploitation of various natural resources. The basic idea is that we Romanians no longer trust our government to be able to enforce regulations that we have. Yeah, so that is undermining everything, and I think people are on the streets because they finally realized that you cannot delegate that anymore to the state. But if you break here for a second and you think, what kind of country is that when you can't trust your state to actually be enforcing regulations? Yeah. You have chaos, and that's why people are saying enough with the way we've done politics in the past 25 years, enough with corruption, and it's not just corruption, it's also gross incompetence, cronyism, appointing people that have nothing to do with the public function in top-level positions in the government. And that has an effect on our day-to-day life. I mean, look at the hesitation in asking for help. It took 6 days and public protests and open letters to actually have the government move and ask for help from other EU member states and other countries that could help. I mean, and here we're not talking about a situation where someone would gain something out of it. I mean, money or something material. It's just people that are frozen in their mind and cannot react to what is going on.
Catalin, you protested. What drove you out on the streets, and what did you want to happen?
I guess like many other people, anger was part of it. And as Laura just said, there's another angle to corruption. There's incompetence and imposture, and related to the tipping point.
Can you explain what that incompetence is? Because some of the things that happen in Romania make my jaw drop. I want you to share some of those things with our audience so we're all on the same page with you. We can empathize with you. Incompetence, like what?
Well, there's a saying in Romanian which is merge și așa, which translated into English would roughly mean that, it goes like that, so you don't have to do things to the letter properly. You don't have to follow procedures completely. You don't have to. A safety. We have somewhat of a non-safety culture in this country, and it's pervasive. And it comes to a lot of people not doing their job right, starting with government officials. And I think there was an easy association of things that should have been done to prevent this fire, like the fire people, the fireworks, the pyrotechnics people doing their job, the soundproofing people doing their job, the club people doing their job, the city hall doing their job. And it goes all the way to the top of the country. The former prime minister that just resigned is, in a sense, the greatest impostor of them all. He started his career with a plagiarized PhD 3 years ago when he got into power, and he exchanged the people in the commission that were supposed to analyze the plagiarism with cronies from his party.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's
like overnight.
and a lot of
he's
people
currently being.
That's the tipping point. Actually.
Yeah, he's currently being. He's currently on trial for corruption. Anyway.
Yes.
Wow. All right, Malika, what did you?
Just to show me that picture made my blood boil for a second there, just because this guy has been in our face for 3 years, and for all the people who are doing their job right, that are common, good people in Romania.
How do you get to be prime minister and you how do you get to be prime minister and you have issues like major
Romanian
issues?
parties are a system of anti-meritocracy, anti-selection. So
Wow.
Absolutely.
The worse you are, the better you do. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's actually something, that's actually something that people online
may come as a
told us
shock,
too.
but that's the reality. Yeah.
Wow.
Loda, that's actually something people online told us too. This is Adrian, who pitched this show to us and has been asking for us to do it. So he tweets in Romania, all public institutions are something political. And for a normal, he says, non-political person, to enter is hard work, almost impossible. Now, other people are also sending us tweets and video comments on what that corruption looks like in everyday life. So I want to play one from Christian, who explains really how difficult this is for a lot of Romanians. Have a listen to this.
One day you see a road being fixed in an undamaged section. Then the doctor asks you to bring your own medication to the hospital, while your neighbor kids are not going to school because their parents need to pay the water and electricity bill instead of clothes. Then you realize that the local authorities have given contracts to their friends owning construction companies, that the government is building projects using the same companies. The water and electricity bills contain fees for the friends of politicians. Then you hear that people are dying because the same authorities have closed their eyes in front of blatant disregard for safety. And you realize that the corruption cancer is in fact killing the society.
So Laurentiu, that picture that he painted for us is drastic and really sounds tragic. Is that been your experience as well?
Yeah, he's totally right. I mean, what can I say? I'm not going to paint the picture better as it is. He's totally right. You get like public acquisition contracts, okay, which are awarded via a very politicized clientele system to people who have companies who are close to politicians. They overpay the work that they should do and they should deliver, and then the commission is split between the company and the awarding institution, and also goes further up the chain to the top politicians. And yeah, you get people who get into hospitals, and the hospitals don't have medicine, or surgeons don't have gloves to operate, okay, or they don't have suture needles to close up the operation. So yeah, what can I say? The dude is totally right. Okay, this is a messed up system that we get thrown at us every 4 years, and the most tragic part of it is that it's like you want to vote for someone, but you always end up voting against someone, and you choose the lesser evil. You know, that's basically our, well, with some exceptions, our history for the past 26 years after the fall of communism. Okay, there's no real selection process going on based on is that dude a blatant idiot, or is he actually a professional who could do a job?
I want to laugh. Oh, I can't work out. Should I be laughing or should I be crying?
You should do both.
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing that.
We are in
I'm
a crying
emotional
mood
mess.
these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me show you something, a headline from the New York Times. Victor Ponta, Romania's premier, steps down after outcry over corruption. I had noticed that Radu has been very quiet of late. He's a former advisor to Victor Ponta. Radu, what did you make of your former client stepping down here?
I think it was the right gesture at the right time. I think previously in the past he was asked to resign. There could have been even better moments in time to resign as well. I think that nowadays in Romania we're in a transition phase, both in terms of social, economic and political issues. I think we used to say in Romania, you know, that not only Romania, that each country has the political class that it deserves.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, do Romanians deserve these politicians?
I think Romanians deserve clearly much better. But I think in order to make the political class understand that they need to raise standards, that we are part of the EU NATO clubs, that over there in those clubs you resign for any proper reason and so on, without waiting for somebody to actually ask for a resignation. I think we're still in transition period at that phase.
So Radu, I can tell why you were a former advisor. Radu, did you have any inkling as to Victor Ponta's background? Did you feel he was a straight-up guy? I mean, at what point were you, why am I advising this person?
One of the basic issues in consultancy is that you don't really speak of things that you're discussing with your clients. So when you're advising,
is he still a client then, or you could just tell us if he's not?
No, he isn't.
Okay,
no,
so,
he isn't.
So
but
then
nonetheless,
tell us.
I don't think that it's okay
Right.
to speak about things that you're speaking with somebody in bilateral.
Okay.
What I can speak about is objectively as an analyst, in the sense that I think that the past 2-3 years have been. Unfortunately, this was also a tragedy that marked the tipping point. But I think the past 2-3 years have marked an increased and accelerated time in Romanian history where basically Romania is ready for change. This change is being encouraged by the middle class, the urban middle class, who clearly has higher standards, is more cosmopolitan, travels more, understands more of what Western standards in terms of politics means. And this middle class brings pressure on the political class to change. I think
Listen, I'm gonna quickly jump in and say what Radu cannot say.
Yes,
because,
go ahead.
Because of his
I'd love to hear
position
that. Please, go ahead.
as a former advisor, and I really respect his choice of not divulging. It's really professional. What he cannot say is that Victor Ponta should have resigned a long time ago. The first time he was accused of plagiarism and also proven that he had plagiarized his PhD thesis. Then he should have resigned, and he should have resigned out of reasons of honor after shamefully losing the elections in 2 weeks, the presidential elections. Then he should have resigned when he was indicted by the Anti-Corruption Prosecutors Unit, and then he should have resigned when he was put on trial for corruption charges, for Christ's sake, okay? Now, the reason why Victor Ponta didn't resign, and it had to come to something like this of tragic proportions to finally force him out of office, okay, is the fact that his party needed him as a puppet to shepherd this widespread system of corruption and just permit these acts of corruption to happen.
All right,
okay?
let's not dwell on him because he's now an ex-Prime Minister. Let's move forward a little bit. Malika, where do you want to take us?
I want to share this from Facebook. This is Constantinescu, who says, corruption is everywhere. Politicians steal public money. Ordinary people steal by not paying taxes. All of us are stealing at this point. And why? Because we have good laws, but they're not applied. And so this person then goes on to say, let's make this experiment for a couple months. But Laura, I want to pick up on the part about we have good laws, because there is a body investigating corruption cases, the Anti-Corruption Directorate. What are they doing, and is it making any difference?
Well, they're doing a great job, and they've been doing this job for the past 10 years, and it is the first time in the Romanian history when anything like this happens. So now, for the first time in the history of the country, important people are held accountable. They go to jail, they're losing their assets, they lose their public positions. What we don't see, unfortunately, and I'm talking here about hundreds of people, thousands of people that are now in jail, including top level officials like ex-prime ministers, ministers, members of the parliament, mayors, city councillors, or judges, prosecutors. So you see like a big group of the political elite going to jail, and the group that replaces them does the same thing. And this is very concerning for us.
Right.
I think there was a breakthrough this year. We managed to put pressure to change the legislation on political party setup. So now it is easier to set up new parties, and some of them have appeared in the meantime. It's easy to say, it's the fault of the electorate that votes for corrupt officials. But the question is, do they really have a choice? And the reality is that for many, many years, for 26 years now, the people did not really have a choice because we had a closed political party system. So it was very difficult to set up a party. Politicians would play singing chairs. And let's not forget, we talk a lot about Mr. Ponta, but let's not forget the junior partner in this, in the last government, which is UNEPR, a party that was never voted by anyone in this country. They always ran on common lists with the Social Democrats, and then they allegedly split after that, and they become a party which just brings over people that are leaving from other parties, and they become decision makers. They decide who forms the government and who doesn't. And excuse me, in a democracy,
Laura,
this kind of great party...
Trying to understand Romanian politics is very difficult, but what I can understand, though, is, Catalin, you went to see the president recently. How was that meeting?
I think it was a good meeting. It was for the first time that the president held consultations with just citizens or members of the civil society in addition to political parties. I just want to, for a second, I feel like I should defend my country a little bit. The picture that the guy you had earlier on, and it looks quite bleak. The country is quite nice, to be honest. Good. We have good people, and that's actually part of the problem, and especially with the middle class. There's a very modern middle class, normal people doing their jobs, and they look nothing like politicians. There's honest people like Laurentiu, journalist, Laura, an anti-corruption, Radu, a great consultant, unfortunately for the wrong person. That was kind of like the triggering a tipping point. Speaking about the president consultations, we asked him for what everybody who was in the street wanted. On the one hand, that we want an easier access for people to form their parties and to be elected, and we want some electoral reforms so that people that are not
What was his reaction? Because we're hurtling towards the end of this main show, then we'll take you online in just a moment. But what was his reaction, Catalin?
I think it was very positive, and I got a feeling that he felt a very different vibe in that room with the 20 people that were there. Okay. 2 hours before, the people from the parties were there, and I could tell that he was impressed that a very different kind of competent, well-meaning people were there, passionate about the future of our country.
So before they were politicians. He met with politicians, then he met with competent people.
Well, civil society. Go in they go on a quest for fortune and power.
Right.
And most of them.
Real people from the community, civil society. Okay, Malika.
I'll leave us with this tweet from Andre, who says he thinks this discussion we've been having and what is going on in Romania is the beginning of a new political era for Romania, and hope that the changes are not only dust in the eyes, but we will see.
We're taking the conversation online. There's so much more to talk about, to dig into what's happening in Romania right now. We're going to do that with Catalin, Radu, Laurentiu, and Laura, and hopefully you too as well will be online at the online post show at stream.aljazeera.com. And if you can't get there right now, you can see the entire program and the post show on YouTube. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Hello again, this is the Streams online post show. We're talking about the impact of corruption in Romania. I'm going to start this part of the conversation via Malika. What do you have?
Well, before we enter into the post show, one of our guests was talking about some of the positive people and things in Romania and mentioned journalists who are working hard. So I want to play a video comment from another journalist who sent this to the stream. This is Vlad, and he talks about what's next. Have a listen.
Hello, I am Vlad Andriescu, a journalist from Bucharest. I think that all of us are more mature and maybe a bit sadder than we were 2 weeks ago before the fire from Collective. A generation started to ask questions never put before, and this is a good thing. Unfortunately, we also found out that we should keep our eyes open, because in time of unrest, media is split between trustful sources and manipulations.
So, Laurentiu, what do you think people's eyes are open to now that they perhaps weren't before the fire?
I certainly hope that the people's eyes are more open to the basic act of government. There's something that I personally am missing in this political scene and in politicians versus citizen, is the fact that very few of us, with the exception of journalists, but that's our job, actually look at the 4 years that have passed before an election round and try to draw the line and see what the people that have represented them have really done, okay? And vote accordingly and search for the best and optimal solution that is put on the table in order to pursue their own agenda, the citizen agenda. That's really important. So I sincerely hope that this tragic incident has opened the eyes of Romanian society to just scrutinize a bit more what elected officials and also named officials, because those are the ones who are really the most dangerous of them all in terms of corruption and whatnot, really scrutinize what they are doing. And yeah, Vlad Andriescu, who's also a friend from here from Bucharest, was right. The media scene was also very split. And there's tons of websites that claim to be media institutions that don't really do a professional job. So what I would also advise to anyone who's tuning in and listening or reading on Twitter is to really search trusted sources, decide for themselves who's to be trusted and who not, and inform themselves accordingly.
What I really like about this conversation is that you've all been very candid about the challenges in Romania, probably maybe too candid about the challenges in Romania. Laura, if we had to balance it up with daily life and everyday living, is the corruption the thing that weighs you down? Or do you have the same issues that everybody else has in the world in terms of, getting kids into school, getting everything done on time, like relaxing, getting through your weekend? I'm just wondering how big an impact corruption actually has in Romania.
It has a huge impact. I mean, you go to a club and you die, yeah? You go to a hospital and they don't have the basic supplies. I mean, we can't even open a discussion about bribes in the health sector, because if you honestly put this question and if you say anyone that has paid a bribe and anyone that has taken a bribe in the health sector in Romania should go to jail, that would put the entire adult population of the country in jail. And that's not acceptable, yeah? So really, corruption is endemic in some sectors, in others less so. In the area of permits and authorizations, I think you can fight the system provided that you have enough time. So I'm not paying for an authorization to repair my house, but it took me 1 year and I still don't get it. So yeah, and I have all the papers, but I'm gonna wait. I'm not gonna pay. The same with the traffic police. You don't have to pay the traffic police. If you pay the traffic police, you become part of the problem. So I think there are areas where you can tell your citizens, stop paying, do your part of the job. But there are other areas like the health sector where there's simply no choice. I mean, yes, if you have money, you can go to a private hospital or you can go abroad. Yeah. But if you are a normal person, you go to the normal health system. Education, I mean, there are all sorts of gray funds, informal payments, all sorts of things that parents collect. And it's more serious than it was during my time when when I grew up. So I would say that yes, corruption is impacting your day-to-day life, and it is your problem. If people are stealing from public procurement, if people are funding political parties in unacceptable ways, it is your problem, and you should care about it. I mean, it's very easy to say, I'm not going to go to vote because there's nobody I can vote for. Yeah, well, you know, this is what you get in return. There's absolutely no accountability on the side of politicians because they know they're not fighting for your vote. So I think now it's a waking up moment, and I think it is a tipping point, and I think more and more people articulate these kind of things, and hopefully with the opening of the political market, some new players are going to come up. And you know, but looking at Bucharest, just to give a final example, looking at Bucharest, we had decent people that ran to be mayor. We still voted for a corrupt one that was finally caught red-handed, taking bribes, you know, with 25,000 euros in his hand, when everybody around him was under investigation or arrested. So he knew that he was coming up, and still he couldn't resist taking that bribe. When they went to do a house search in his apartment, they found bags of cash in the apartment. So really, I mean, and people from Bucharest had other choices, but they chose to vote for the one that is likely to win.
I'm screaming inside here. This is. See, the reason I asked you that was because Catalin quite rightly said we're painting a really bad picture of Romania. So I just wanted to ask Laura. So okay, so tell me about everyday life, and that's what you told us. So maybe Catalin,
I mean, this is the reality.
I don't know where the silver lining is. I'm hoping it's coming soon. Meanwhile, Malika, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to pick up on something you said, Laura, because you talked about you're not going to pay the price or a bribe yourself. This is Christian who writes in, well, we all need to change the way we react to corruption because ignoring it only makes it grow. So just echoing what you said there. But Catalin, I want to push towards this next tweet because this is moving ahead. This is Blidaro who writes in. And new protests have been announced for the 1st of December. The cabinet to be formed will have a huge challenge. Do you think you will be out there on December 1st? And what do you expect?
I mean, I'm not sure. December 1st is still it's still a while away. It depends, I guess. A new prime minister has been named yesterday, and I think there's a general consensus that he is a professional, honest figure. Now we're all waiting to see what kind of cabinet he forms. And there's a great demand from the citizens, the civil society that, yes, that's the guy. And there's a great demand that new people, professionals are put in charge of our administration, because what we're suffering from as much as corruption is incompetence and the lack of capacity in the administration. So sometimes it's not stealing, it's not knowing how to do things, being stupid or lazy. I mean, those things are all linked together, so they're not individual problems. So I guess it all depends on how the forming of the new cabinet pans out. How the parliament reacts. Since the protests, they've taken a couple of measures that were in response to protesters' demands. There's more to take, and they've also taken some measures to make it difficult for the new government to meet its obligations. So there's some anger. There's a sense of expectations. It's kind of hard for me to tell where things are going right now.
Yeah, you don't have a crystal ball. Laurentiu, anything that we should know about this nominated Prime Minister?
Well, not about him per se, but before I get into that, I wanted to quickly jump back into the bleak picture that Catalin is trying to combat.
Yes.
During this talk, there's just one very objective fact and figure that I wanna throw out into the crowd. 2 years ago, the infant mortality rate in the countryside in Romania, so in rural villages, okay. And I remind our viewers that Romania is a member country of the European Union, was 9.82 per 1,000 births. So 9.82 children statistically died before the age of 1 year, okay? And that equals, no disrespect intended whatsoever, to the same infant mortality rate as Botswana, Okay.
Well, you know, if you're talking to journalists, you're going to get the mean world syndrome.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. But it's our job to put things out there that need to be changed for Christ's sake, okay? And where Catalin is right is that we are chronically suffering of a severe form of mismanagement with, simply said, blatant idiots put into office. And now getting back to the Prime Minister and someone else being put into office, now, to the person of Dacian Cioloș, the one who has been designated by our president to become prime minister, I have nothing to say against him. I mean, he has a good reputation, and he has the reputation of a professional. And he has done a great job at the European Union because he was former EU Commissioner for Agriculture. He's certainly versed in the art of political negotiation. Agriculture is a very, very loaded portfolio in the European Union with a lot of cash involved, especially for the bigger countries. So he himself is okay, as I said, nothing to say against him yet.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I had to write this down. So many great quotes from all of our guests today, but blatant idiots put it into office. That could be almost any country, anytime, anywhere. But particularly relevant to Romania. I should stop talking now before I insult everybody. Catalin, Radu, Laurentiu, and Laura, thank you so much. We know way more about Romania than we did 45 minutes ago, and that is thanks to you. Malika, how is our online community reacting to this
Romanians are watching this conversation, had so much to say, so thank you for your tweets. I'll end with this one from Stefan, who says, I'm not sure about the protest's future, but the most important thing is not to forget the collective tragedy. It needs to stay with us.
Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.